In this tutorial, we're going to create a merge data set between a high resolution outcrop model that we see here and a low resolution digital elevation model. So I've got my digital elevation model imported already, and you can see here that they're quite different resolutions. So what we want to do is create a nice neat seam around our high resolution model. So to do this, we're going to select our high resolution model, operations, and then extract free edge polylines. This will take a moment or two to run. And what this is going to do is generate a polyline for us that traces round the edge of our high resolution model. Now I've already tidied up the edges of this model to make it nice and neat. If you keep your edges neat and straight, it will make the merging process much easier. So I think now we should have some polylines. Depending on how neat your model is, you might get a lot more polylines than this if it's got a particularly rough edge to it. So here's our boundary polygon, and there's also a secondary boundary polygon, which is going to be a very small patch that's disconnected from the main part of the model. So we select our main polygon, and then our next step is to do exactly the same operation, but this time we're going to do it as free edge points. And this will extract the same data set, that same edge data set, but put it into point clouds and give us a point data set. And there we go. So we can see our boundary polygon and our boundary point data set. So I'm going to switch off the point data set, and I can switch off our mesh for the moment. Right, so now we've got our two data sets. The first step is I'm going to do a duplicate on my elevation data. I'm going to work on the duplicate in case I make a mistake, and I can always go back to the original. So now I'm going to right click and go operations, select inside visible polylines, and all the vertices that are inside that polyline in a map sense, so looking directly down from above, will be selected. So I can then go into here, and I'm just going to do operations, and it is delete selected points at the bottom there. That will get rid of them. Now we've got a couple of places where we're going to get some issues with our data sets not joining up properly. It's because we've got a slight mismatch between the high resolution model and the outcrop data and the elevation data. So we have some other tools that can help us here. I shall go to edit and then select vertices by painting, and I can select and paint out the vertices that I think are going to be problematic. So there's these vertices here which aren't matching our overstepped a bit, but that doesn't matter. And then let's get rid of these here as well. And then I should just be able to do a delete selected points again. And there's maybe one or two more that we need to just tidy up down there. Again, operations, delete selected points. Right. We can have a look to see if there are any stray points that we've missed. There are one or two. Let's take those out. And there's a few along here, and then one down there. operations, delete selected points. There we go. So that's should be nice and clear now. So let's select our free edge point sets and outcrop elevation model and the digital elevation model. I'm going to do operations and then merge. That's going to create a single data set that has both my elevation data and the boundary polyline in the same data set. I then go to my data, I'm going to right click operations, and I'm going to triangulate, and I'm going to triangulate from above, and I'm going to set a very large maximum edge length. I don't need to do the post optimization, so I'm going to just select go, and that's going to take a few minutes to run. Okay, so we're nearly there. We should have our mesh data, and we can see the position of our outcrop model. I'm going to switch on the boundary polygon again. So this time I'm going to right click on the mesh, select inside visible polylines, this time on the mesh rather than the point data set. See, that's changed color slightly. We can now do operations, and we want to do delete selected, and that will get rid of all of the triangles that are inside of that polyline. So on our new mesh, we can now right click, and I'm going to import my texture map, which I happen to have in there already. Give it a moment or two. You see it's building the texture at the moment. There's our texture, and I can now switch on my high resolution dataset, switch off that boundary polygon, and we can zoom in closely and see we have a very nice tight match between our high resolution outcrop model and our lower resolution elevation model. There are places where you could maybe tidy it up a little bit more, and if we then go to data and onto our meshes, we can change the display style. Sorry, it's in the mesh group. I can change the display style to wireframe. So here you can see how the connection is made between the high resolution data and the lower resolution elevation model.